we have developed our own little intimate family right here. So we might have a few inside jokes. We'll let you in on as much as we can, but we're really here to talk about a few things. We're talking about humanizing the Black woman and her experience with breast cancer. The late Audre Lorde, and also breast cancer sister, she said, if we don't define ourselves for ourselves, we will be crushed into other people's thinking, and then they will end up controlling us, and we won't know who we are. I paraphrased it for the sake of my interpretation of it. But so we are defining who we are as Black women, and we're humanizing us, because so often we find ourselves in a situation where we're not believed. We don't believe that we're told that our pain isn't real, and to endure insurmountable pain, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so these women here have joined us to be able to share our stories, to shed a light, just to give us a glimpse of what breast cancer looks like. So we're going to start today with you, Mama Joyce. I'm going to ask you, how old were you when you were first diagnosed? And then tell me about your first experience of your diagnosis, of being diagnosed.
Okay. I was diagnosed at 65, and it was, I had an MRI, and I'd like to just tell my story in this way. My mom was a breast cancer survivor. She had breast cancer 20 in 2000, and she lived to 2020. So she was a 20-year breast cancer survivor.
Mm.
And so because of that history, I had to do MRI one year and mammogram the next year. But when it came to time to do my MRI, it was supposed to be done in May, and I prolonged it until September. And only then, after my daughter asked me why hadn't I done my MRI and what was I afraid of. So I immediately made an appointment and went in for my MRI, which was on a Thursday, and they diagnosed, and it was on a Thursday. Monday morning, my primary care physician was on the phone telling me that I needed to come in for further tests because it showed something on my MRI. In the meantime, I got calls from several other doctors at Howard University to make appointments to come in. They sat down, they went over everything, and it was on. And all I can tell you is that in 3 months, everything was complete. So that's the urgency that they pushed me through.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't on my own. It was do this, see this doctor, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 3 months, by the time the 3 months was over, I had my surgery.
Wow, Mama Joyce, that is some incredible wow. So you said a lot. You said that you have a family history because your mom was a breast cancer survivor, and what I heard that sticks out for me is that she was a 20-year breast cancer survivor.
20 years.
You know, that is so crucial, because quite often we find out that big mama or grandmama or auntie mama, had breast cancer at their memorial service. And that's not your story. She lived for 20 years as a breast cancer survivor. That's brilliant and beautiful.
Absolutely. And she was a model for how to embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
and just continue to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that we'll come back and we'll get some more about that. But I just want y'all to hold on to it. Part of why we're here is to show you other women that might look like some of you, and to let Black women know who are going through the journey right now that Black women can and do survive this disease. Yes, the statistics are unsettling. And yes, the harder we fight, we want you to know that hope is available. And next, I am going to go to you, Shannon, because you're fairly newly diagnosed here in 2021. right?
Mhm.
Tell us how old you were and tell us about your initial diagnosis.
I was 49. I was diagnosed in December of 2020 last year, and I was diagnosed with invasive lobular carcinoma, ER/PR positive, HER2 negative, basically cancer in the milk duct. So I had actually started just getting this was my third mammogram that I had ever gotten. In the first mammogram, they decided I had dense breasts, which is pretty popular that I found out in Black women. So this time around, I thought it was the same type of situation because, with dense breasts, they're like, you have to come back for a biopsy and then they call you and tell you you have dense breasts. But this time it was different because they actually called me 2 days before Christmas and told me that I had breast cancer. And so that's how that came about. Early detection, I would say. Third mammogram in at the age of 49. So that's my story.
Wow. 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 So you talked about a lot. We talked about dense breasts. For those of you who are out there who may not know what dense breasts are, let me give this disclaimer first. I'm not a doctor. I've never gone to medical school, and I do not have permission to give medical advice to anybody. I only share from the experiences of my own breast cancer journey and the journey of other women. So, in short, what dense breast means is that there's a lot of tissue inside the breast, and it makes it very, very hard for breast cancer to be seen on a mammography screening because dense breast tissue is white, and so is a breast cancer diagnosis. So you got white inside of white. It gets really, really hard to see inside there. That's what that really means. And then you talked about your diagnosis being lobular. So lobular means it's inside the milk duct. That's where many breast cancers form, or inside the milk duct, and it goes from whether it stays contained in the milk duct or it breaks through and goes outside. Shannon had lobulars. Her cancer was found inside the milk duct. I had invasive ductal carcinoma, which means that my breast cancer actually broke through the milk duct and had already traveled to another place in my body. Um, but but there are so many women who have dense breast and are go back to the doctor, time and time again because they think they see something, and or they'll say, let's wait 6 months, and look at this again. Shannon, tell us what the waiting period has been like for you over the years, what that whole process feels like emotionally.
Well, in the beginning, everything is like quick. Like they're trying to get you into your doctor's appointments. Like I was diagnosed on Thursday, Monday, I was scheduled to see my surgical oncologist, and then 3 months later, I was on the operating table getting a double mastectomy. Now, during that 3 months, it was kind of like I had issues with my decision. It was challenging for my decision because it was like a double mastectomy versus a lumpectomy or a single mastectomy because my right breast only came back areas of concern. And so by the time they tested and everything, it came back as precancerous. So I was actually in prayer about it. I was trying to do the least invasive surgery. I'm not going to lie, because this was,
Mhm.
I've never had major surgery before, never been on an operating table. So I was like, oh, let's do the lumpectomy, you know. But I prayed about it. God had another plan, which was this is why we need to listen to God. And I'm glad I listened to God because if I would have gotten a lumpectomy, it would have been a disaster because after surgery and I received my pathology report, there were 16 additional tumors forming in my left breast where I originally got the diagnosis. So I would have been right back in the same spot.
Wow.
I'm now 6 months. I'm receiving treatments for my blood clots I developed right after surgery. So that was a whole nother story. And so now I go on Monday for testing to see if they're gone. And if they are, then I can get scheduled for my reconstruction surgery. So the journey continues.
Absolutely. Wow. 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 Stay with us. We'll continue the conversation. Thank you so far. Um, and Reverend Tawana, your story is very, very big. And so, as best you can, so I'm talking to a preacher and asking a preacher to figure out how to condense this big story so that she can share it with us, and we can just hear from you.
I can do it, beloved. I promise you.
Ah, I love it.
I was diagnosed in November of 2016. I was 46 years young, and I have HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer. I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer because it had already spread outside of the original area of diagnosis. So I had surgery. We had this whole treatment plan. I went through 6 rounds of chemo, had surgery, and right during the radiation planning and mapping, they found out that all of my cancer had come back. I too, Shannon, had decided to get a bilateral mastectomy because my cancer was so aggressive. And I know people have the argument, why would you cut off your foot when you could just cut the toe and all this other stuff? But for my livelihood and for me to live, I had to make a decision based on what was before me. And because of the recurrence, they wanted to go back in and do further surgery, another surgery, which would have further debilitated my left side. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So that was not an option for me. So I was recommended to go get a second opinion and had to switch hospitals in order to be a part of a clinical trial, which is scary enough for Black women or Black people in general because of the treatment here in America when it comes to clinical trials in the medical field and Black people. So I was on a clinical trial for a year, and then my body started to reject the clinical trial. So I'm grateful that the chemotherapy that I am on now is still working. I am on chemotherapy every 3 weeks indefinitely because of the metastatic breast cancer. And I've had 3 occurrences over the last 4 years, but I am approaching my 5th year, which is that milestone year. So it's, I'm excited and then nervous at the same time, but in all things, I trust in God in this process, and just grateful to still be here to share my very complex story. So that's my summary, sister.
Oh, wow. So let me recap for the people, because I've heard these stories multiple times and you're hearing it for the first time. So I want you to hear what she said. She said she started this journey with metastatic breast cancer. That's where she began. Metastatic means that the tumors have traveled. There's a new finding in a different place. It's the same breast cancer, but it's found in a different location in your body. So she began this journey with cancer already in a different place in her body. You switched hospitals in the middle of treatment. Let's unpack that, because how many people do you know, especially people of color? We get Dr. So-and-so, and that was our mama's doctor, our grandmama's doctor, our great grandmama's doctor, and been the doctor in the family for the past 40 years. And the doctor might be a phenomenal doctor, might have been a phenomenal doctor for all of them. But what do we do when we find the doctor doesn't work for us? Right? And so at some point you have to find your voice as an advocate in your own journey. So talk to me, sister, about finding your own voice and making a powerful decision around switching hospitals.
I am grateful to Carrie's Touch, who journeyed with me from day one of diagnosis. And Tammy would always remind me, use your voice, advocate for yourself. You don't have to respond to every text message. You don't have to return every phone call, protect your energy. So all of these things were going through my head when I found out that I had this major recurrence, and making the decision to move to another hospital. One, shows the challenges that we have to access. Right. And why aren't clinical trials just available no matter where you are? So I've really had to learn to be an advocate. My daughter was my trooper. My right hand went with me to every appointment, every chemotherapy, to ask the hard questions, because at times the doctor would sound like the teacher from Charlie Brown, right? So I'm listening, but I'm not really listening. I'm not really hearing. So being an advocate is being in the know and knowing and making decisions based on factual information that's before you. So what worked for Tammy or worked for Shannon or Mama Joyce may not work for me. So I hear your stories, but I have to glean from that the courage to say, you know what, even though my journey is different, they all exemplified this power of being their own advocate. And that's what Tammy did for me. And I was able to advocate for myself and have the courage to switch doctors and hospitals so that I can be here today.
Amen. Yes.
Wow, wow, wow. Shannon, go ahead and tell us about the time that you had to find your voice and become your own advocate.
Well, it was when I was in the midst of trying to make the decision of having a double mastectomy or a lumpectomy. And I'm thankful for Carrie's touch and Tammy walking on this journey with me.
I promise y'all, these were not plugs. These were not set up questions.
Oh, we do have a whole bunch of backstories, but we're not going to go into that today. But in the midst of me making my decision, they were doing testing to see if there were other areas of concern besides my diagnosis in my left breast. And so I had to do an MRI with contrast. Didn't know there was such a thing. But anyways, it came back that there were areas of concern in my right breast. Mm-hmm. And so then they were like, we have to go for another biopsy. I'm like, okay, here we go. If this is the most I ever got poked, prodded, tested, like all kinds of stuff. But thank God for healthcare. So I went in and they were like, oh, it's really small. We're going to wait for 6 months and then we're going to take a look at it. Let's just, focus on your left breast. And, there was a voice saying, okay, so you're just going to wait on cancer for 6 months and you're just going to just sit there and just get your treatments for one breast. And so I advocated, was like, no, I need you to biopsy this. I need you to look at this because I need to know like now. Mm-hmm. This is happening so fast. I'm emotional about it. Everything is crazy. Everything's coming at you from all these different types of ways. And so long story short, it came back as precancerous. And so that's when I made the decision to, again, if I would have waited, I might have been in the same situation that I'm in now that I was in 6 months ago. So who knows? But yeah, that's when I had to advocate. And so that's played into my decision to have the double mastectomy, the bilateral mastectomy.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Anybody out there identify with these experiences that these sisters are sharing with us? Tell us in the comments where you had to advocate for yourself and find your voice. Find your voice in your own healthcare. Let us know. Mama Joyce, when did you find your voice in your breast cancer journey?
Well, I found my voice. Everything was moving along really fast and really positive until I got to the oncologist surgeon. And it was just another number as far as I was concerned. It wasn't concerned. You don't have to wait. I mean, you can wait. It's not cancerous and all of this stuff. And everyone else was saying, we need to take care of this. And so with my diagnosis, it was only calcium deposits on my breast, but evidently the radiologists in radiology, they saw more, or they had seen this happen before. So they were telling me something totally different from the oncologist surgeon. After the biopsy, and I went in to him, and he was saying, you don't have to do it right away. It's no rush. And then the head of the radiology department was saying, no, we need to take care of this now. And so I broke down and I was with my daughter, and I just broke down after my visit to him. And she said, Mom, what's wrong? And I said, I just don't feel comfortable with him. And so I went up to my primary care physician, and she was able to see me right away, or she took me right away. And told me I had choices. And so my daughter, in turn, talked to her father-in-law, who suggested that I try another doctor. And it turned out that he was a newly elected president of Howard University, but he was also an oncology surgeon. And so he was still seeing patients, and he took me. And I'm telling you, it was the best decision that I made. When I look back on it, had I continued with that other doctor, I just don't know. But he was the whole team after that was just so supportive. I just can't say enough about Howard University. And the creator's good,
Yeah.
it just fell in place. And I'm here to tell my story after 7 years. So
Oh,
that's a blessing.
oh, Mama Joyce, I have chills. I have chills, chills, chills. What a beautiful story, and what a beautiful way of finding your voice. And to you out there watching, we're telling these stories, and we're telling these stories that you are empowered as a patient to speak up for yourself and to help to build a healthy patient physician relationship so that you can get to that place of comfort for your betterment and for your well-being. So if you are in a situation right now where you have a physician that you're not communicating, doctors are human too. Just let them know, hey, this is what I need and this is what I would like. Most doctors really, really love their patients, and they want to see their patients well. They want to see their patients thrive. They want to use their patients as the model patient or the model examples. So build those healthy patient physician relationships. You've just had 3 examples on how to do that. So as our time is wrapping up, I got 2 more questions. The first question is, what is that one thing that you want to make sure that the folks that are watching along with us today, what's that one thing you want to leave with them?
Well,
Go ahead, Mama Joyce.
I just want to leave something about family and wanting to survive, beat the cancer. If you find out you have it, just make up your mind. With the Creator's help, you can beat this.
Mhm.
And I can only share with you one of the experiences that I had, one of my greatest experiences. And my husband was so supportive of me the whole time, and my children. But the grandchildren, being young and wanting me to be around for them, and the support that the grandchildren gave, it was just unbelievable. And today I sit here with almost a 2-week-old great grandchild. And so you want to be able to carry those lines forward and be an example to them. So, and to continue to work with others to make sure that our lives are not just a life, but a meaningful, productive life.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Every time you speak, Mama Joyce, I just get this big warmth in my heart. And I feel like I'm getting a big old hug from God because, right? See, I saw that. I saw that. Right. I just feel like I got a big old hug from God and saying, daughter, it's going to be all right. Everything is going to be all right. So thank you for that, Mama Joyce.
Thank you.
Tawana, what's that one thing, if there's nothing else the people hear today, what's that one thing you want them to know?
The one thing is, and someone just said this in the comments, is about courage and the courage to share your story, creating that sacred space, creating that faithful space, surrounding yourself with a tribe or a village. It doesn't have to be hundreds and thousands of people. It can be 3 or 4 people, but having the courage to tell your story, because in our communities and overall in the Black community, cancer equals death. And we want to just stop that misnomer. We know of the disparate numbers, and we are addressing that right now through this intimate conversations. And that means that 59%
That's right.
are surviving, right? So let's tell our story and let's share our stories, encouraging others to share their story with a semblance of courage, because you just don't know whose life you might save just by sharing your story.
Wow, 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 wow. Whoo, if you have been moved to share your story, no matter what your story is, put it in the comments. I will share my story. Shannon, what is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
one thing you want people to know?
Well, kind of what Tawana said. Um, just don't be afraid. Like, cancer diagnosis doesn't mean an automatic death sentence. Just you have to walk in courage, you have to walk in faith, and know that it's your own walk. I myself struggled with survivor's guilt because there were certain treatments that I didn't have to go through, but I equated it to like a pregnancy. Some people have more difficult pregnancies than other, but it's all difficult and it's your own journey. So what works for someone else might not work for you, but stand strong in your diagnosis and don't give up. Support matters. I'm thankful for my family. I am thankful for my sorors. I am thankful for all my friends who supported me through, because that helped us. So if you can support somebody, please do, because that actually helps when we can't help ourselves, basically. Because there was a time where I couldn't pray for myself because I was so down and out, and I was just trying to recover and all these meds, and it was a lot. So that's all I would have to say. Just walk in your courage, walk in your strength, and tell your story.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
don't be afraid.
yeah. Wow, you ladies are some powerhouses. So there's a group of sisters that I call our superheroes in the cancer journey, in this cancer journey. And Shannon is one of the superheroes in the cancer journey, because Shannon said, you know what? I am taking the bull by the horns, and I am walking in my strength in my journey. I called Tawana our model patient, because Tawana said, whatever y'all tell me to do to live, I'm going to do everything that you say that I can and should do. And so, and Mama Joyce, you said, oh, no, no, no. Cancer is not going to run rampant. In my family, my mom was a breast cancer survivor, and she survived for 20 years. And I'm going to keep surviving and thriving as long as I can. So each of you possesses a special superpower that when the rubber met the road and you were like, I'm done with cancer, it's on my last nerve, you better go sit down somewhere, cancer. And then you got back up and you said, no, cancer, you will not win. What was your superpower?
Yes.
What was your superpower? Anybody?
Wow, I'll start. My superpower was definitely my children. I have two grown adulting children, my daughter and my son, Eric and Kaisha. And let me tell you something. When I was in the hospital having what was a near-death experience, my children held up my arms like Aaron and Hur did for Moses in the Bible. They spoke truth to power to these doctors. They was like, that doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? So my superpowers come in the form of my children and my beautiful grandson that I call my angel on earth. Those three, the trifecta, give me the strength and the power to press on and to be courageous and to speak truth to power during these trying times and during my process of healing.
Yes.
Wow. Mama Joyce, what was your truth to power?
My truth to power was actually
your superpower.
Okay. My superpower was the creator, number one, and blessing me to I had 5 children, but I had 2 daughters, and I never went to a office visit or to a doctor without one of my daughters, and they journaled the whole thing. And my husband was right there, like, do you want me to go? And I'm saying, I think the girls will be better, because I knew they would ask questions that I would not think of. And the advice, but the support that I got from my religious community and my friends from life, and it's just been a great journey. It's still here, but I want to say one thing to you, Tammy.
Yes,
I want to thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. This is the first time I've ever told my story. So I thank you for this opportunity. And this is
Oh,
a healer. This is the first time that I've really been able to say I have breast cancer and not break down.
yeah,
Oh,
Thank
yay.
yes.
you so much for
Yay.
that. And we are family for life.
We are
Yes,
family for life. We came on
yes,
board and we said, Mama Joyce, you got 3 new daughters.
yes, yes.
I'm so
We
thankful. God is good.
Yes,
You have 3 new daughters, and when we show up, Tawana's coming from Baltimore, and me and Shannon are coming across from California. And when we show up in DC at your front door, now don't be shocked because we're coming.
Okay. You're welcome. Anytime. Thank you.
Yes. Shannon, my friend of 25 plus years, we have prayed together for 25 years, and I know you well. But what
yeah.
is your superpower?
I have actually two superpowers.
Mm.
Unseen God.
Mhm.
That was my superpower because he spoke through other people to give me the help that I needed when I couldn't help myself.
Mhm.
My other superpower is my sister, Latrenda Easton.
Yeah.
And I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. We recently lost my middle sister in 2019, and she showed up for me, and I'm so grateful for her. She was in my kitchen cleaning in her dresses, like she was like coming working from my house. She drove me to my surgery date appointment, but it was so sad because of COVID. No one can be there with you in the hospital. So I basically just felt like I was going in to turn myself in and do time in jail. So it was just like she dropped me off, but her and my mother as well too. They were my superpowers because they stayed with me and they never left me. And I'm so thankful for them.
Wow. 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 And wow. You ladies are phenomenal. And I, Carrie's Touch, and our amazing Intimate Conversations team cannot thank you enough for sharing your time and sharing your stories with us to kick off this conversation. Because we are here today for you. We are here for women that look like you, women that look like me, people that will be diagnosed with this disease. There will be men who are diagnosed with this disease, and they need to hear from all of you. They need to hear your stories. They need to hear your challenges, and they need to hear how you triumph in your superpowers. And the common thread that I heard among all three of you is how important family is. Family is critical to support us in the Black woman, in the strong Black woman context. Quite often we suffer alone in silence. I say that we try to do all things to all people all the time perfectly while suffering alone in silence. And you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to suffer alone in silence because you were willing to be vulnerable enough to share your story, and you were brave and courageous and bold enough to share your story today in front of the thousands of people that are online watching with us now. And we will get to touch thousands more who will come back and watch the recording. I love you, and keep on surviving and thriving. Yes.